people, Deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian. Come on. As Ian Wright said there, people, Deluded, I'm back again. You lot have been crying to get Jess, aka She Knows Arsenal, back. We finally did it. She was 2 minutes late, but we'll let her off. How you doing? Oh, something wrong on my end. This is a great way to start the stream.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good now. You're good now. I was panicking. I don't think anyone caught a word of what you said.
Yeah, I feel like that's my end, but yeah. I'm good. I can't complain. I am ready for football to come back because international break is so hard. What about you? Ready?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Have you seen, we've just signed where England's concerned, a very good manager. We're ready to win the 2026 World Cup, man. I big up you lot. You lot got Pochettino, though. We got Thomas Tuchel now. What do you make of it?
I can't keep up with who your we is. One day it's Brazil, the next day it's England. Who's your we this time? Personally, I think Tuchel is a good coach, and he's suited to cup football, so it should be fine. But I'm not surprised that there's so much weirdness about it. If that makes sense,
What do you mean by weirdness? I think I know what you're talking about, but touch on that.
I mean, because he's German and he's not English, basically, and I'm just listen, if there was a top English manager that was available that was better than Tuchel, I would say, yeah, why didn't you choose that person? But that person's not available. That person doesn't exist. So I feel like this is the best that you could have gotten. And I do think that Germany and England have history, but I don't think it's I think it's specifically because he's German. Because if it was Pep, the people would be jumping for joy.
Exactly. I think you're bang on the money, Jess, man. And that's what annoys me in that is a sense of, you can have praise for Thomas Tuchel. You can have criticism. You can question, is he the right man for the job? Obviously, if you want an English manager for the English job, I'm sure everybody wants the same thing. I can't have any complaints. But rather than talk about the man's tactics, his suitability, whether he's able to go from club football to international football, it's just been basically the fact that he's German. And you said it there, if Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp was involved, there might be this noise, but I very much doubt it. And also, you said a crucial point in the sense of who's better than Thomas Tuchel, because you're going to, the same names in the Graham Potters and Eddie Howes are thrown into it. Apart from the fact that they're English, are they better than Thomas Tuchel? Have they got stronger credentials? Have they worked with the level of players? Probably not. Obviously, you're in America and you're from America. Is that kind of rhetoric held in America as well, especially because you got Poch? I think you're on mute,
Yes, I was muted. But I do feel like our situation is different. I feel like there are a lot of Americans that would prefer it be an American manager, and we've had that, and it was a fucking train wreck. And so when you think about the level between Tuchel and let's say Potter is probably, it's not that big, but the difference between Greg Berhalter and Poch is massive. Do you know what I mean? And so I feel like we don't have the luxury of being able to sit there and be like, well, we want an American manager. I know there's some that want that, but I do think that they realize that we need to get the best we can get because the World Cup being in the US is so important. Going out in the group stages and all that kind of stuff would just be a massive flop.
Which is going to happen.
No, it's not.
Man, you're not good at this football stuff, man.
You hate American soccer kind of stuff.
Nah, stop that rhetoric. How can I hate it? How can I hate it?
I saw you. They said that. I saw you. You forget that I follow you. They said that the MLS is a better league than several other leagues, right up there with the championship. And I know it said it was better than the Dutch league. And here you come talking about the best MLS team would get stomped out by a championship team.
I never said, remixing what I'm saying, people, but this is what she's alluding to. The top 10 best leagues in the world, according to Opta. You've got the Premier League first, Serie A second, the Bundesliga third, fourth, you've got La Liga, then you've got the French League, then you've got the Brazilians, then you've got the Portuguese, then you've got Belgium, somehow you've got MLS, and then you've got the Championship. Do you honestly believe, I'm not even, banter aside, do you honestly believe the MLS is better than the Championship? Hand on your heart. You definitely don't.
I do.
You definitely don't, Jess.
Yeah, I do, actually.
So the top MLS clubs, if you throw them in the Championship, they'll get promoted. You stand on that?
Yeah. I support one of the best MLS teams, and we're that team. LAFC, we're that team. Like, we're very
starting
good.
11?
Bawanga.
Who?
I know you act like you don't know who Bawanga is, but if he played for Marseille, which he could play for Marseille right now, then there. We have Giroud. You know who Giroud is, right?
Yeah.
You know who Giroud is, right?
Yeah, it's a retirement. MLS a retirement home, man.
You know who Giroud is. Mateus Bogusz, he's really good. He could play in the championship. A lot of the players that, like, I know LAFC end up playing in Europe anyway, so
top European clubs, yeah.
I would like to see it.
Are they good enough?
I want to see it. I mean, Mateus Bogusz could go to Celtic. That's not a bad club, is it?
No, Celtic's a massive club, but like, it's Celtic and Rangers. They're not even getting out the championship, honestly, if they were there. Like, do you think MLS should be higher there?
No, I think it should be like right where it's at.
Seriously, you rate it above the championship, so half of them championship.
It's bothering you so much.
No, it's not bothering me. Like, I just don't agree. Like, I don't think the MLS is that good.
But you don't watch it, do you?
Why would I watch it? I don't think the MLS is that good. I think, you're around your development with young players, you're doing great stuff. But in terms of competitiveness, I don't think the top MLS clubs get out of the championship. I'll be honest with you, man. They can't even bop leads.
I feel like LAFC and Columbus could go into the championship and do just fine.
Over 40, like 30, you're talking like 30, 40 games, in the championship.
Yeah, 30, 40 games. Yes. Yes, I do. I think some of them championship players you're overrating just because there's a couple of really good ones in there. Like,
no, I just don't think you lot get promoted. You might get the playoff spots, but I don't think if the top three MLS sides. So what you said, LAFC, Columbus, I believe. What would be the third?
I don't know. I guess you got to give it to Inter Miami. There you go.
Yeah, it's fair. They got Lionel Messi. They might get out. But all right, cool. They got Lionel Messi. They've got the best player ever. Like, that's cool. They got
Luis Suarez too.
Yeah, they got Luis Suarez. They got all the pensioners collecting a paycheck, as their career winds down. So you reckon them three get promoted from the championship? 100%.
I think they would have a good chance of it. Yes. I think they're very good.
We don't want a good chance. We want yes or no. We don't want PR answers, man.
There's not PR answers because I don't know for sure. What I do know is that they ain't getting relegated. I know that for sure.
Boy,
they're right in there.
Like, if I look at the championship, if I bring the championship table up here, bearing in mind, Sunderland got a small squad. Sunderland are bopping. I reckon Sheffield United are bopping.
Sunderland.
Huh?
They're actually doing good.
Yeah, they're doing well. They got a very young squad. They got a couple decent young players. I don't reckon any of them MLS sides, Messi aside, not if you can say that. I don't reckon they beat West Brom. I don't reckon they beat Leeds. I think Watford have been good this season. Sheffield United, 19 points. I don't know. I can't.
You've never watched any of the teams.
Of course, I've watched MLS. When I'm trying to fall asleip, that's definitely some good entertainment, man.
Don't watch them. So there you go. You go.
Come on, like, is there even any American players that are the top 5 ever in the MLS or have a case to say that?
Wait, what do you mean?
Like, in your whole existence of however many years you've been on this earth, right? Of watching the MLS. Like, if we was to say Premier League, we could name some English players that could have a case to be in the Hall of Fame or the Mount Rushmore. How many actual American players would be in the top 5 to top 10 in the MLS?
You mean like Clint Dempsey? Like these kind of guys?
Come on, you see, this is what I'm talking. This is why the MLS is not serious, man. I'm not saying Clint Dempsey. Yeah, actual Americans. Like, you've got Kaka would be there, Messi would be there. I can't rate the MLS.
Don't care about that. We're talking about the MLS, man. What are we saying? Them 3 teams, because a lot of the good players in the MLS, some of them are not American. So that's
my point. Like, I can't rate it.
So you can't rate it if the top players in that league are not American. That's what you're saying. No, I'm just genuinely. I'm just asking a question. Is there actual Americans that would be in the top 5 MLS ever? Because you're an expert in MLS. I'm not. I see the content you do. I'm trying to learn here. Like, is there any? My goodness. Listen, there's some top American players. But
so give us a few. I'll help you. Matt Turner, Austin Trusty, Balogun.
So dumb. No, they don't even play in the MLS. Be serious. You don't even know where they play. Look at you. Look at you. You don't even know where they
Listen,
play.
we've got to get content, man. We've got to get content. But yeah, the MLS, it will never be a serious league in my opinion. Landon Donovan, he was quite good to be fair, but
Yeah.
he didn't really do too much to
You
scream
hate
and
Clint
shout about.
Dempsey? No one hates Clint Dempsey.
Clint Dempsey, he did his thing at Fulham and that. He was alright. Like, I don't think he's in the top 50 Premier League footballers I've seen in my life. I can't lie to you. He's alright though. Who would you say is actually, before we move on, who would you actually say is the best American ever?
Oh, it's Clint Dempsey.
For real?
Yeah. He's that guy.
Second. Give me one more.
Landon Donovan would be second. Those are like the top guys.
Yeah, I reckon Jamaica's even got a couple better players. But
Let's be
none of them Americans have done what Wes Morgan's done. But have they captained the Premier League side to winning the league? He done that at Leicester. Hey, we got young Amari Hutchinson coming through as well. It's crazy. So yeah. What do you think the MLS has to? Last question on MLS, because it's actually fun for me to ask you this. That what do you think the MLS has to do to grow the league? And do you ever think it will be like a top 5 footballing league?
I feel like they're doing good things now. I feel like they're merging between like having big names like Messi and stuff like that come over, but then also being like a good league to develop players. Because again, I know that's like people think it's a one-off, but it's not a one-off. There are good players in the MLS, young players, especially. And if Arsenal, had been linked to John Duran before he went to Villa, there are lots of Arsenal fans that would have scoffed at that. They would have said, "Oh my gosh, MLS, what are you talking about? Look how good he is." There are several players like that you could get, So I think first, it probably will always be a developmental league in some ways, and I feel like that's the best way for the league to go up. To be honest, but will it ever be a top 5 league? Will it ever be better than? It'll never be better than the Premier League or La Liga or anything like that. So, I don't know, because I also think it's difficult to become better than a top 5 league if you have no way of playing in the Champions League. That's
a good point, to be fair.
In European competition. So I don't think so, but I do think that the MLS, if you do watch it, you will see that there's a lot of talent there.
There is talent,
but
just not good teams.
But I would love to see LAFC play in the championship and see where we're at.
They definitely wouldn't get out of the league.
I back my team, man.
I hear it. I want to move this on, yeah. And obviously, before we get on to what I want to ask you, obviously it's been the international break. You know how Arsenal fans are on social media. There's a couple of talking points I want to discuss. The first thing is, and I'm sure you've been asked this on your own platform, are we better without Odegaard? And also on top of that, do you think we overrate as Arsenal fans Odegaard's importance to this team?
Oh yeah. So I did see early on in the first couple of games, nobody was really saying that, because we played against like Spurs, played against Man City. It was really tough, and I think once we got to the games against Southampton and Leicester and we played well, and against PSG, I do think that, we're better, we're better. We're just as good. Our underlying metrics do not say that we're better. But we've played lesser teams, and I would expect Arsenal without Odegaard to be able to batter the likes of Leicester and Southampton. We made hard work of it, but ultimately we were much better than those sides and should have been winning like 4-0, 5-0. We just didn't because we did stupid stuff. Are we better without Odegaard? No. I think anybody that thinks that we're better without Odegaard is just running agendas. Like, we're not. We don't have as much creativity. Trossard is doing a really good job on the 10. Don't get me wrong. And I do think his future for Arsenal, whether it's a medium to to long future or, a short future, I don't know what it is central. And so we're seeing the best out of Trossard in a central position. That being said, like, come on. Be so serious, Arsenal fans. Be so serious. Now, is it a good thing that we're able to play well without Odegaard? Absolutely. But would I want to go into the games against, Liverpool at home or Newcastle away without him? No, I don't. So I think people have to take into consideration the level of competition that we were up against Leicester in particular, and Southampton. Them games, we were going to be better. Like, we're going to be normal, like, without him. The PSG game is probably the one that stands out the most, but we still didn't create a lot. You know, I think in that game, we got the 2 goals. We kind of defended in the second half. We're not better without Odegaard. I mean, what do you think? I think it's dumb, but what do you think?
Honestly, you took every word I could say out of my mouth, man. Like, again, it's nice to, obviously, I know YouTube can be a bit of an echo chamber, and it's nice to hear differences of opinions, but it's nice to know I'm not crazy. I personally think anybody that genuinely believes Arsenal Football Club is a better side without Odegaard, as you said, you're running agendas, or pardon my language, you're chatting absolute shit, because not only do we lose a lot in an attacking sense, as you've said, you know, we lose that glee of a pass, we lose the relationship with Saka, we lose a lot defensively, and the man's our captain. He's almost a bit like Jorginho off the pitch. He's an extension of our coaching stuff on it. Like, you can, you know, we've all seen the hand signs and all of that kind of stuff. I'm praying he's back for Liverpool. I think it's absolute nonsense. You know, injuries can strike. We've done well to get through these games without Odegaard. You know, Mikel Arteta has obviously found solutions, but I do, God forbid, if, you know, if he is out for a number of weeks, even extended, you will see the frailties in that side. Now, granted, though, despite Odegaard not being there, I think in general there could be a lot more said for our creativity. I think even when Odegaard's there, as much as he can do, I think we could create a lot more. So there's issues in that regard. I still think we need to, me and you have spoken about it before, I still think as we move to the future, we need to find, you know, whether that's Ethan, whether that's someone else, whether that's trying some other solutions. I do think we need to cope better without Odegaard, but I think anybody that's saying that is absolutely smoking, man.
Well,
I wanted to ask you, go on.
I was going to ask, because, like, there is something to be said about how everything goes through Odegaard. Is that a bad thing? Because now that Odegaard is not there, at the very least, you do see other ways of us being able to create chances without, because it does kind of feel like when Odegaard's there, it's like Odegaard gets the ball. Now let's start to try to create a chance, which is kind of makes sense because he's our best creative midfielder. But do you think that the over-reliance on Odegaard is really a bigger issue than Odegaard's talent? Because I feel like sometimes those things get conflated. It's like, because we rely on him so much, if he's not like his talent level gets mixed into the way that he's being utilized. Can Arteta take a little bit of like what he's done when Odegaard is out and implement that when Odegaard comes back a little bit, and not make it so much of like a single point of failure, if that makes sense?
No, that's a great point, man. And one I haven't considered. Naturally, to answer your question simply, yeah, 100%. Like, you look at Manchester City, of course, you know, you're going to miss, it's a bit different, but you're going to miss Rodri, you're going to miss Kevin De Bruyne. But when everyone's fit, whether they've got the Fodens, the Kevins, the Gundowans, whatever have you on this world, you know, everybody's creating. Anytime you've got one central hub, you're going to be in problems, aren't you? Like, you look at Bukayo Saka, you know, it's only been in the last year or so, or 2 years tops, that, you know, we haven't necessarily lived or died by Bukayo Saka's performances. You know, as you know yourself, if he wasn't scoring, we was in trouble. So naturally, I think there could be something, and I think this was a bit of a glance into what we kind of answering your question as to what Mikel Arteta could do. Like, I've been impressed with our left-hand side, if I'm honest. You know, we're going to get onto that. I just think it's a personnel problem. I think, one, it's a personnel problem. Two, it's simply what Mikel Arteta demands. Like, that's Odegaard's job. Everything kind of runs through him. Naturally, me and you have been passionate about midfield. I want a number 8. I know we're not going to find a Cesc Fabregas or a Santi Cazorla, but I think we'd benefit if we had someone like that. Haven't seen Mikel Moreno really kick a ball. Obviously, Declan Rice is playing in that 8. That's another debate in itself. Partey's done all right, but none of them are specialists. So, yeah, even with Trossard, like you said, like, Trossard's been doing his thing and he's been great. But we both know that's not a long-term solution. I don't know who that would be or what it would be. But yeah, man, I think that's the only way I can answer your question. That's a great point, Jess, man. I wanted to ask you about Saliba's stinker for France, man. I know you've seen the agendas, man. I know you've seen it. Like, what did you make of it? Is that people have been preying on the guy to have a off day?
I don't care. Like, I'll be so honest. Like, I'm not French, so I really don't care. I think that, you know, ever since Saliba played in the Euros and Konate sat the bench, there's been even more haters than there ever was before on Saliba, because, you know, everybody's always playing on our players' downfall, but like, then you have the Liverpool fans really getting in on it. And my whole thing is like, Saliba didn't choose himself. Deschamps chose him. That's not my problem. You know, they ran with the Konate was ill. You ain't sick for no month. Okay, what kind of illness you got? You know, he was dropped, and that's just not our problem, you know? So I feel like, listen, we all kind of watch our rivals players play, especially the good ones, and wait for them to have stinkers and then bring it out. But the idea that Saliba in a Nations League game has a bad game and then that makes him a bad player, we all know that that's not true. You can't go 1 minute with all the rivals, sitting up there with their little mics and shit and, standing up on their little couches talking about Saliba, he just, for the progression of his career, just must go to Real Madrid. They just must. He has to. Then turn around and be like, he's ass. Them two statements don't go together. Which one is it? Does he need to further his career at Real Madrid because he's so good and he's too good for us? Or is he shit? Which one is it? I do not care. I've seen Upamecano have many stinkers for France. It's okay. We will survive.
I think you're bang on the money. And the best thing I'd say to Saliba, if you want to do that in a French shirt, that's your business. And I mean, obviously, that's the realm. You look at Van Dijk, anytime Van Dijk breathes wrong, there's issues. That's the level that Saliba's got into. You've seen what he's done in the Prem. You saw what he did at the Euros, even got in team of the tournament. He did slip. He has to hold his L. But as long as he doesn't do that in an Arsenal shirt, I don't care. Are you concerned about the Real Madrid links? Because where you look at Saliba, he's still linked with Real Madrid. There's talk of giving him a new deal. Where are you at with that?
I feel like with Saliba, I've already kind of mentally prepared myself for him to play for Real Madrid.
Fact.
My whole thing is like, it's not, for me, it's not an if, it's a when. And I would like that when to be a lot further along down the line. I think it all depends on how successful we are. And I think the more successful we are, the more likely he is to sign a new deal, which is paramount to him staying longer. And yes, it always seems like we're re-upping these players, but that's just the reality. Like a 3-year deal, 4-year deal really isn't as long as you think it is. And the way that Real Madrid have operated recently is they like to let players get either into the last year of their deal or when they get into, or they become a free agent or whatever, and then they try to get them. And I think you have to think about this, even though they're saying in the media that they're willing to pay as much as Arsenal want, that's not true. What they'll do is they'll have the likes of Mbappe and Tchouaméni talking to him behind the scenes.
Camavinga as well.
Yeah, Camavinga talking to him behind the scenes, saying that, you need to do this, you need to do that. And then when Arsenal offer him a new deal, we'll either be in a position, depending on where we're at, he could say, well, I'm not going to sign a new deal. And then we end up selling him a year before his deal expires, and then they'll get him cheaper, or he'll go on a free, which Arsenal are not going to allow that to happen. Yeah, so I think from my perspective, I think about it two ways. I think about it, we need to start winning trophies if we want to keep Saliba. He's not going to stay around. Like you don't have players making statements like, I think I'm one of the best, center backs in the world or whatever, and they don't think that they can play for Real Madrid or they should be winning trophies. So I think you should be mildly alarmed, especially, because Arsenal fans have been really casual about winning trophies, I feel like. And I'm like,
expand on that.
I feel like last couple of years it's been, but we're challenging. I'm like, guys, challenging is fine when you're not worried about players that you could potentially lose. We're in that period now where it's kind of like shit or get off the pot. You either win or you're going to start losing your better players, and I don't necessarily worry about the likes of Declan Rice or Odegaard because they're like 25, 26. I think we get their best years. But the players that are not in their best years yet, those are ones that I worry about. Saliba, Saka in particular. So, yeah, I think the casualness from the last 2 seasons, I think this is something that if you have been like maybe a little bit less patient about winning trophies, this is something that was probably in the back of your mind. So now there is a world where we sell Saliba and we bring in another player and we move on. I think there's always more players. The problem that Arsenal have had over the years is when we sell our better players, because we haven't achieved, we don't reinvest that money either at all, or we invest it into players that are nowhere near the level that the player that we lost. And I think, yeah, you can't replace Saliba. He's kind of like a one-of-one type player. But will Arsenal be able to go out in the market and identify somebody that could give us the same vibe as Saliba? I'm not sure. But there's a world where you sell Saliba and the project still goes on. It's just whether or not we trust Arsenal to do that. So, yeah, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how alarmed are you by these rumors?
5. I think, you touched on it there, where you said obviously the longer we don't win major honors. Like right now, Saliba's just turned 23. He's finally arrived as a footballer. I think he's got 90 odd appearances for Arsenal. He's been in 3 years now. He's asserting himself. He's part of the project. As much as it's all about trophies, and there is going to be a time where he has to look at Arsenal's project and say, if I'm going to win stuff, good and bad, you've been part of this. Like, if we haven't won or lost anything, you've been a major part of it. So we all have to take accountability. I think with Saliba's contract, the fact that he's tied down, the fact that there's stability, the fact that I'd never had a conversation with Saliba, I think obviously he's comfortable now. I think we've got nothing to worry about. But as you said, the longer it goes on that we keep being the bridesmaid and not necessarily the wife, that's where you've got issues. And like you said, he speaks about being the best, wanting to win trophies. At 23, he's probably the best defender there is in the Premier League and potentially in world football. If I'm Saliba, I'm not in a rush to sign a new deal, purely because I know people don't like to have these conversations, but it's like any job, you've got to get your worth. You look around the market, there's no real young centre half that's doing what he's doing in a major part. Obviously, the longer your deal runs down, the more leverage you have. If I'm him, I'm trying to be near the top earners. If you're Arsenal, you wanted to sign a 5-year deal. If I'm Saliba or his agents, I'm trying to say sign a 3-year deal, potentially with a 4th, and I'll extend that to Saka and whatnot, purely because kind of what you touched on. In the next every 12 to 18 months, you're in a position to get new deals. Now, I take the Real Madrid kind of rumors just with a pinch of salt. I see it as a testament, because no one could turn down Real Madrid. A bit like you, I've made peace with the fact that he'll play for them. Honestly, if we don't sell him for 80 to 100 million, I think something's wrong, and it's testament to what he's doing. But I mean, they have spent money, but they've not been gun-ho. They're not quite doing the Galactico thing. And I think a bulk of the rumors with Saliba is the fact that they want a centre-half. They've been linked with Saliba. They've been linked with Romero. There's been injuries at centre-half with them. They tried to get the young Lenny Yoro. They're linked with some Brazilian centre-back.
That was damaging to us, by the way. When Lenny Yoro didn't go to Man United, I knew this was coming. Like, I was like, that's what we needed. We needed Lenny Yoro to kind of go there. That would have stalled it a little bit longer. But I was like, fast forward 4 or 5 months, they're back on Saliba. So yeah, there you go.
And then it's the natural thing, like you said. He's probably talking with all his French boys in the same way when we was trying to sign Declan Rice, Saka, and all of that were probably doing what they're doing in the international break. It makes sense. You look at Alaba, you look at Rudiger. They're their best years are they're in their present form. Saliba has, in my opinion, barely scratched the surface of his potential. So it makes sense. The issue for me generally with Arsenal is that you've got one career, and the longer it goes on, I'm actually looking at Mikel Arteta, I'm looking at Saka, I'm looking at Saliba, I'm looking at half of these players and thinking, oh, when is your time to go? Now, I've seen Thierry Henry leave Arsenal, Jess. So I love Saliba, but I don't care. The club keeps going. Whether we find someone on Saliba's level or not, there's always other players, really. So we'll have to do. It's a techie one, but honestly, if Saliba isn't the first player that is sold for 70, 80, 90, 100 million from this football club, then we've done something wrong. I wanted to ask you about Kai Havertz. Do you believe you can get 20 league goals?
Oh my gosh. What's weird is that I thought when Odegaard got injured that his numbers would dwindle. I was like, he doesn't have the person feeding him anymore. But he's still contributing despite no Odegaard. And so I do think that, when the season started, I didn't think about it in goals. I thought I want him to get at least 30 goal contributions. I don't know what the split looks like, but I want 30 goal contributions from him. And then I'll feel like he had a good season, because no matter how we try to spin it, and it's like, oh, well, you're a facilitator. We need output in that position. And I think he can get that. The 20 goals, I can see him getting 17, I can see him getting that, maybe 20, maybe he does that. Maybe in all competitions, I'm not sure. But what I will say about Kai is that, I always see people are like, when they talk about Kai and Raya in particular, it's always, since January, they've been blank. Since January, they've been blank. Since this is how about, can we just say that they're good players and just move on? Honestly, I think Kai Havertz is just a top quality player, genuinely. And now it's kind of like, you're seeing that little bit of audacity and arrogance come out from him that you didn't see before. And I just think we can put that first half of the season, last season, away and not mention it anymore. That's not who he's been at Arsenal for me anymore. He's just a really, really good player for us, you know? And I think if he can get 30 goal contributions or 30 contributions in general, I think that'd be a good season for him, whether the split, I don't know what it is, because he gets quite a few assists too. He's the one player in our team that I feel like we'd really struggle to replace if he were to get injured. And if you would have told me that, I would feel that way like last season. I would have been like, you're crazy.
Especially when he was in midfield, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think Kai has done really well for himself, and he's only 25 years old. He can still improve, you know, to a certain extent. And so he's been a revelation. And, you know, from somebody that really worried about the signing, I really do think like this center forward position suits him so well. And it suits us so well. Are you expecting him to get a certain amount of goals, or, you know, like if he were to get 20 goals, would that make you feel like we don't need to buy a striker? Like, what is your feeling on that?
And I like the way you framed that, because it goes on to the segment. I mean, it's a difficult one, man. It really is. I don't know about seasons to come. I think Kai Havertz has a really good chance of getting 20 Premier League goals this season as a minimum, Kai, because of the games you're playing, and we'll get on to Jesus. Unlike Jesus, you actually want to get in the box. I see, you need to get more than 13 because you've actually been on it from the start of this season versus last season where you wasn't. B, I think you've got a real good chance of getting 20 league goals, man. And obviously it's a difficult one, because if Kai Havertz turns around and gets 20 league goals, I don't really have a leg to stand on and say, yeah, we need a striker, we need Isak, we need this, we need that. He's done his job. He's done everything we've needed to ask of him. So I would say if he gets 20 league goals, we have to revisit it. And you can clearly see last season with Kai Havertz's form when he went up front, that probably swayed Arsenal's thinking in the market, because we did try to get Sesko. We didn't really push the boat out for him or another striker. And Kai's doing his thing. Arguably in 2024, he has a case. I don't necessarily believe this, but he has a case to be our best player of 2024. So he's got a leg to stand on. Do you think, obviously we know Kai Havertz is a versatile player, you know, before he kicked a ball in an Arsenal shirt, he scored a Champions League winning goal up front for Chelsea. Do you think Mikel Arteta failed upwards with Kai Havertz? Because he did kind of persist in him in midfield. Obviously, circumstances favoured Kai, and he's ran with it. Like, do you think it was planned? Because on one hand, he's very versatile, but on the other hand, do you think it was an accident? Like, was he trying to make him that Xhaka replacement?
I feel like Arteta did galaxy brain it a little bit. And I mean, I do think the way that he tried to use Kai initially was in midfield. Because you go back to preseason, a lot of the games in preseason he played in midfield. He did. And it wasn't that great. I remember being at the game against Barcelona, and he was all right, you know, in midfield. And the only time that he was really used up front was in the Community Shield. So I will give Arteta credit and say that I don't think that the midfield experiment failed and then he just said, okay, put him up front, because he did do it in preseason. So he did think that he could play up there. I think, you know, maybe he felt like Kai playing in midfield was more important than him playing up front, because we had lost Xhaka. Partey went down early too. And so the midfield options were very limited. Whereas I think Arteta, like if you asked Arteta at the beginning of last season, did he trust Eddie and Nketiah more than he trusts Vieira? He did trust Eddie more than he did Vieira. So he'd rather put Kai in midfield and trust Nketiah, because remember, Eddie played a lot at the beginning of last season up front.
He did well off the bench against Fulham, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, exactly. So
to be fair, Fabio did as well.
Yeah. So I think Arteta did feel like Kai could play multiple positions and anticipated him playing in both. I think that he anticipated him playing in midfield more based on the exits that we had and the amount of players that we had injured in those positions. And then once it became clear that we needed to shake things up, he did put him up front, because I think Arteta likes whatever Kai brings. He likes that. So whether it's in midfield or up front, he wants that in the team. It just works better up front for us. So I don't want to see Arteta got lucky and just magically decided one day to put him up front and it worked, and then we just stuck. Because I think he always anticipated him playing there at some point. I just think that he maybe felt like he could trust Jesus and Nketiah more than he could trust whatever options he had in midfield, which I think at the time was like more like Emile and Fabio, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think Arteta kind of has gotten to this this place with Kai, and it's great. But I just think he needs to stick with it now. I don't want to see Kai in midfield for multiple reasons. I don't think it works. And then equally,
let us know why, because I was going to ask you, and I think you kind of alluded to it, and it puts a great segment. It's like, what is it that Arteta likes with Kai up front that he doesn't like in midfield? Because I would describe Kai personally as an all-action forward. He does get in the box, gets goals, obviously gives us physical presence, but he does drop deep. And I think the major thing for me is the movement off the ball. It's like, I'm not trying to diss Kai Havertz because he's got a decent, his technical level is great, not necessarily in comparison to his teammates, but I think Kai really knows his strengths and weaknesses. He knows build-up players in his. He's great in terms of movement. His link-up plays there. And I think the best thing for Kai Havertz personally has actually been confidence, because is Kai necessarily a better player than when he walked in the door at Arsenal? Probably, but I think confidence. But where would you be at with it?
Yeah, I think Arteta really likes his. I think Arteta rates football intelligence very high, and I think Kai has that. I think he knows where to be. He's responsible. He's really good off the ball, which we know Arteta cares about more than pretty much anything. And so I think Arteta, and also Kai, is one of our only midfielders that has legs that can run and kind of like cover ground. Besides Declan, that's it. Everybody else, no offense to Odegaard, he tries, he really does. But once you're past Odegaard, you're kind of past Odegaard.
Yeah, he's not the most robust of figures. He does put in a shift, but he's not a strong man.
Exactly. So I think that's what Arteta really likes about Kai. And those are soft factors that people don't care about, but those things are kind of important. And I think when we see them up front and we have a more balanced midfield, we appreciate it more. But when he's in midfield, you are missing a little bit of something. And I think that's where like Marino comes in. Because when you watch Marino play, I think you can see what Arteta thought that Kai was going to be able to do. He does a lot of the off the ball stuff. He doesn't do a lot of he doesn't keep onto the ball long. And there's a lot of little wall passes and stuff like that, but he does it quicker than Kai. He can operate.
He recycles the ball well.
Yeah, he recycles the ball well. What's wrong? You about to throw up? Oh my goodness. But yeah, I think, the plan for Kai, a lot of our players, there was a rough draft of the player before. Chambers was a rough draft for Ben White. And I think Kai in midfield is a rough draft for Marino. I just think Kai lacks a little bit of something in midfield. Well, the balance lacks something, and something is not right when he's in there. So just leave him up front. It just works better for us.
Do you think we've seen the end of Kai in midfield? I only say that because I was thinking about it yesterday. If it was up to me, we signed 2 midfielders owing to Jorginho and Partey not being of the right age. But in my opinion, you've got Moreno, you've got Rice, you bring in 1 midfielder. You do have the luxury of Kai Havertz, in which it hasn't been a consistent thing, but Mikel Arteta hasn't been afraid to do that. Do you think we've seen the end of Kai Havertz in midfield? Because if devil's advocate, if you sign a striker now, Kai is surely an option to play in midfield as well as competing for that spot.
Well, I think that's where those tactical accounts probably do know what they're talking about. When Kai is never going to be dropped. I think in my mind, it's I think some people are you get a striker and then Kai goes to the bench. The level of wages that Kai is on, one, is a starting wage. He's never going to be dropped. And Arteta loves him down. So I think, when those tactical accounts talk about that diamond, I really do think that that's what Arteta wants to do. I think that he's kind of tried to do it and it hasn't worked. I think he wants Kai Havertz running off of the striker. Whenever we do get a striker, I do think Kai will play in midfield at the tip of the diamond. Whether that works or not, I don't know. But I think, do I see it being the end of Kai in midfield? No, but I think the role will be different unless we get a bunch of injuries. I think as long as Marino's fit now, Kai will stay up front. And I think he has to, because we have very limited options up front. Yes, I want to talk about Gabriel Jesus.
We're going to get on to him. Just cool, man. I know I have to face the music. We got to speak about Martinelli. So it begs me to ask you the question, if you have two options, again, one is going to sound probably a bit more sexy than the other. If you could get the Isaks and, the Gyökereses and all of these blockbuster signings that Arsenal fans want up front, that's option A. Or do you have option B where, again, I don't really have an example to hand, but you've got a good rotational striker that does carry a goal threat, doesn't necessarily ruin the harmony of the team, doesn't necessarily mean Kai Havertz is out of the side. Which one do you think we go with?
I mean,
or is all options on the table?
I think out of like those players that are out there and available, I feel like Arsenal will go after the one that allows the most harmony within the squad. I think Arsenal want to make sure that certain players are still needed and there's not a lot of friction. I don't think Arsenal particularly like having a super competitive squad. And what I mean by that is I think there's always like a sense of who's a starter and who's not in our squad, where, if you were to bring in somebody like an Isak, that would throw out off the balance quite a bit, because Kai Havertz, what is his role now? Where I think if they get a Sesko, you can make a case for Kai still continuing to start up front. But then once Sesko starts to get better, you can drop Kai into that second striker role, or Kai could drop to the bench. And I think that's a better harmony for the squad, whereas Isak would be a bigger signing. That'd be like a bigger statement. I don't think Arsenal are particularly worried about making statements and having like a super competitive squad. I think they like the harmony and people knowing what their role is in the team. So yeah, I think they'll go for like a younger, more developmental striker than like a blockbuster like Isak.
I don't know.
Go ahead. No,
I don't. I'll just piggybanking of what you said. I don't necessarily think that's the worst option. Like for me, bring me the Gyökereses, the Seskos, the Isaks, all of these guys. Equally, if you can find a young rotational striker that can, pull their own weight in relation to Kai Havertz or potentially take Kai Havertz's spot, I'm all for that. And I think if Kai continues his form, it doesn't really matter who you bring in. You're holding on to your shirt. I do slightly disagree in that. I agree with what you're saying in the sense of, Arsenal, it's not that we don't want pressure for spots in a competitive side, but mainly what you're saying about harmony. I disagree because I think Mikel Arteta has shown that if there's difficult decisions to make, he'll make them. And we're trying to win stuff. Like difficult decisions have to be made. It's like, I don't want us, if there's a genuine chance to sign an Isak or someone like that, to not do it because of Kai Havertz, as harsh as that is. And I do think with us Arsenal fans, Gabriel Jesus, we're going to get onto him, and Kai Havertz's ways, you just said it. I agree in the sense of, we look after our wages. We're not going to have big blockbuster, big money signings on the bench. But if we keep up this trajectory and we're somehow like City one day, naturally, surely you're going to be in a position where a couple of those players are going to be on big money and on the bench. Out of Sesko and Isak, who would you go for? And Gyökeres, actually, just out of interest.
People are going to hate me for saying this, but I really like Sesko. I do. I like him. I think
you're in the club, man. They called me a madman.
Yeah, I'm like, I just feel like that he feels like the right choice for us. And I just think that like, I'd rather us have our own version of Isak than bringing in this Newcastle version, because no offense I think Isak is brilliant, but he's kind of always injured. And I'm not sure that spending 100 and something million on somebody that's injured a lot is kind of like what we need to be doing. And I feel like Sesko is kind of like Isak for us. Like, remember when Isak was at Sociedad and nobody wanted him?
Yeah,
and it was like
strikers are a bit weird. They take a while to kind of keep going. I think he might be being a bit harsh on his injury records, at Newcastle. To be fair, he's had a groin injuries, he's had a broken toe. But you are right, though, because that is something that I agree with. And that's something we always say when we speak of Isak. For me, I'm having Isak, man. He wears the number 14. He loves scoring against Spurs. I have this dream of him being reunited with Odegaard and Mikel Moreno. Equally, if it was up to me, Sesko's the dream. I mean, Isak's the dream. I'm a big fan of Sesko. I think he ticks a lot of the boxes. I must admit, I like Gyökeres though, man. The goals are one thing. Like, obviously, we want a striker that's going to score goals. But for me, it's all the other facets of what he does on a footballing pitch, and I think he'd be able to affect the game. I take the Isak stuff with a pinch of salt because it seems like he's trying to get a new contract. We need a new forward. He's always linked with us, and like you said, it's going to cost big money. I would love to be proven wrong because it's very different, but we showed we'll flex our muscles when we tried to get Mudryk. But I think every Arsenal fan knows, whether it's the names I've said or Vlahovic, we're not getting one of them guys in January, you know. And again, I think the club will probably want to wait till the summer to assess the striking options. Obviously, if there's a market opportunity and things like that, great. You know, do you think we'll make signings in January?
No.
Not at all. No goalies, no centre mids, no Trossard or Jorginho sort of deal. Nothing.
No, I don't. I think as much as I do feel like we still need signings, I think right now we have a squad that can get us through the entire season. Like, especially with like the integration of like MLS and when I think those things helped us out. But do I think Arsenal, unless there's like a massive injury, and even with that, I feel like they'll make it work. You know, I just don't see Arsenal doing it unless, like I said, major injury or something like that. So yeah, but I think the time to have done whatever we were going to do was in the summer. Going into the January window, needing to do something for me is just like, you should have did that already, you know, but that's just, who are you going to get in January? You know, that's really the thing.
This is the thing, Jess. Who do you get in January? Like, me and you are not tacticals. We're not transfer markets. We both do know, though, that the transfer market in January is reactive. As you said, in the summer, ideally, you don't want to make no January signings because you would have done everything. Players might want to leave clubs. There might be contracts. There's only so many Kivio, Jorginho, Trossard kind of deals that could be done. I'd love to bring in another inside forward. I'd love a central midfielder. I've only really got hope of the goalkeeping situation just because, you know, Neto was kind of a panic on deadline day. He's not going to be on the bench against Bournemouth. Probably need to bring in the keeper in that regard. So it's difficult. I mean, you touched on it, yeah. And I think you're bang on the money in that. I think we've got the squad. And, you know, going into January, you know, we're going to actually talk about him now. The Gabriel Jesus, the Zinchenko's, the Tomiyasu's, the Kiviors, because of the lack of football. Those kind of players are still and are going to be linked with moves away. Obviously, if Mikel Arteta wants to sell them, great, do your thing. And if they want to leave, it is what it is. But personally, I wouldn't feel comfortable letting anybody like that go in January. If you want to leave, you leave in the summer. We'll do what it needs to be done. Tini could leave as well. Let's speak on Gabriel Jesus, man. Like, before we get into Martinelli, go on. I knew my time would come one day.
I mean, he's been stinky. It's been bad. It has been, but. Listen, like, I'm not really that surprised because it's like, I feel like a lot of the Jesus.
Come on, just the performance though from Jesus. Surely it shocks you. Like, the lack of performance from Jesus now, like, it's ridiculous. I'm saying it's ridiculous. There's no impact.
No, to me with Jesus, it's like his biggest disadvantage has always been his mindset, and this is coming from somebody that really, really liked him at Man City. I thought he was a great player who's so fun to watch, but you can always tell when he was losing it mentally. And he looks stressed out. His decision-making is poor. He looks like he's just playing a completely different game than everybody else. And even like in preseason, a lot of like he's coming back. He looks good. I thought that was like a lot of hopium. For me, I didn't really see
was doing all of that as well, man.
Yeah. And I think I think Arteta was trying to put a little bit of pressure on him to perform and show that he's supposed to be the number 9. He goes out in the media and says he's going to get his number 9 spot back. But he was just, as somebody that's like a goal scorer, I feel like has to be relaxed. I feel like he's just like the opposite of relaxed. He's very high strung. And so when you think about it, if I'm Gabriel Jesus and I'm in the summer, I was doing up this, I'm going to get my number 9 back and I got fire in my belly, blah, blah, blah. And then we're already in October and Kai Havertz is the out and out, like it's not even close. And the manager has given me multiple opportunities and I haven't taken them because in Everybody Eats, he didn't eat against Bolton. He started against Atalanta and he needed to come off and he wore the captain's armband. He started against Southampton. He was not good. So he's had opportunities. And I just feel like we've just run the course with him a little bit. And I'm not sure that he can be saved. And I think it's mostly like the mental aspect of like, I came to Arsenal because I was like shunted out to the wing by Pep. and I was going to be a number 9. And now we're kind of in a similar situation. Arteta's not putting him out on the wing, but he's not the number 1 choice, so it's tough. And Arteta doesn't even ask, like, he wants his strikers to score, but he mostly like will take the hard work and the link up play and that kind of stuff. He'll take that. You're not even doing that stuff anymore. So it's a tough one, but listen, I will say this for sure. If Kai Havertz were to get injured, I'd be very worried. If we had to worry,
yeah, let's not even put that into the universe, Jess. You said it there. I'm a big fan of Gabriel Jesus. I'm not going to turn my back on him as long as he plays for Arsenal. But at this moment in time, it's what you're doing on the field. You're nowhere near the first team. And I think at best, the only criticism we've had with Gabriel Jesus is the lack of goals. You've never been a problem in front of goals. And you could caveat that with, as you said, all the other things Mikel Arteta demands of a forward. Against Southampton, it wasn't there. Now I know I can cut in the luxuries. Your season's been stop-start. I can't expect you to perform in your first start all the little minutes you get, but at the end of the day, that's where you are, really and truly. You have to do something. And the Southampton game shocked me because it was the first time where, and again, his confidence is on the floor, where you really was ineffective. Like, you was running into blind alleys, you're thinking too much. And of course, from a human point of view, my heart bleeds. But from a football point of view, we have not got time for that. As you said, you could describe the left-hand side as open season. You're nowhere near that. You're going to be Saka's kind of deputy if something happens there. You're not playing up front or anywhere near Kai Havertz's spot. The only thing you've done of significance this season is when the Wolves guy touched your bum, or you did the Haaland thing. Like, there's been nothing else from Jesus. I have to be real, and it's looking dark the way it's going. But that's all that's happened. The guy touched your bum, pause, and then obviously you stuck up for the gaffer against Haaland. Apart from that, you've had more hairstyles than goals.
I was going to say nice braids though. Those were nice. I said nice braids, but
nah. You listen, when you're doing what Kai and them guys are doing, you can do the hairstyle thing. For now, you just need to get back to basics. And obviously, I do think the system's left him. I've always said, as much as I like Gabriel Jesus, we need to take a leaf, and I'll extend that to Zinchenko. We need to take a leaf out of the books of City. Like, yeah, it would have been great taking rotational players, making them starters. It hasn't worked out. They've walked in a realm we want to go. These men are squad players. That's it. And the sad thing is, Gabriel is one of the most experienced players. He's not looking like such, man.
Yeah, I think like the idea was, can they? Because with them, you already knew what they were. With Zinchenko and Jesus, when they came to Arsenal, I took them at face value. I was like, okay. At the very least, they're going to be better technical players. They're going to understand the system.
They were great first step, but time is done.
But they haven't really. They're the types of players that we already know who they're going to be, and they are not improving or changing their game at all. Zinchenko is going to continue to do what he's doing no matter what. No, he never changes. Like, he just doesn't. Jesus, similar. He wants to do the same things that he was doing. Where I think if they wanted to stay in the team and still maintain being big parts of the team, they will have had to have become better players or change their game. They're not doing that. And I'm not sure what that's about, if that's like a mental thing or they can't do it, but they're getting left behind. Like, really, the way, and I know people have like an issue with Calafiori, but genuinely, the guy is like light years ahead of Zinchenko.
People are doing way too much of that Calafiori crap as well. Like, the man's 22. Yeah. Of course, he can improve defensively, but these are minuscule things. And when you look at the statistics, Calafiori is doing great stuff. So it does not make sense, man. And you're right. Calafiori, obviously, in terms of in the middle and final third, Zinchenko's probably the best fullback option we've got in that regards. But that doesn't mean anything. You don't really create that much. We've become a better side, and they're better defensively. Timber, Calafiori were laughing. Gabriel Jesus, you're nowhere near the starting lineup. You're with the Sterlings and that of this realm as well. Again, a couple more questions before we get out of here, because we're going over to her channel. Martinelli, talk to me. Talk to me. He's back. You tried to doubt the dude. He's back.
First of all, he's not fully back.
He's back. Big game. What, he got an assist against City. That's a big game when we're down to 10 men. He stood up tall. Did his thing in the North London derby. Back among the goals. They never learn, man.
Listen, for people that are the Martinelli hive, I'll give it to you. I will, because I know that Martinelli hive was stressed. Martinelli hive was stressed.
We're never stressed. Cream always rises to the top, man.
Stressed. I knew it.
Temporary class is permanent, man.
The one thing I will say about like the whole Martinelli thing is that at the very least, like, we weren't going to be able to do anything this season without Martinelli. Even if,
and we get an apology as well while we're here.
Like, I'm not giving no apology. What am I apologizing for? Just saying that he wasn't playing good? Because he wasn't. He was tragic. He was tragic. He couldn't even trap a ball.
Nah, it was good.
Seriously,
It was good, man. The performances were there, man. I'll never stand the bar.
the
But go on, man.
performances
What you
were
seen?
not there. But yeah, like I think the goal that he scored against Leicester for me was like, okay, we're back because he can, with Martinelli in those past games before that, I felt like he was overthinking everything. Like he was overthinking his finishes. And so he was like hitting it wide or, hitting it too hard or whatever.
Smacking it over the bar.
Exactly. Now, the finish against Leicester was very like instinctive. The ball didn't go to him perfectly. Timber crossed it and it went into the penalty spot.
Instinctive finish from a
And
top
he
player.
came back and then put it in the back of the net. And so as long as Martinelli's in positions where I feel like he can think less and be more instinctive, that's his bread and butter. So let's just continue that. I'm really interested to see what will happen with him and Merino. I'm hoping that we'll get to see that sooner rather than later. But yeah, I'm happy for Martinelli because we weren't going to do anything without him. And so, yeah, well done him.
Do you think a bit of Martinelli's form, because I know Arsenal, you've definitely been asked about this, kind of coincides with Calafiori in the team?
Yeah, I think because early on, people were like, it's been one of my little things about Timber playing on the left. It's an option, but it's not our best option. And it's not something that to me was ever a long-term thing because having a right-footed player on the left-hand side does affect your winger. You have to have somebody that can receive the ball on their left foot and not have to cut it in and hit it on their right. You can't play those balls into the left half space. You can't. And also, there's no overlap. So you can't get Martinelli closer to goal. Your options are so much more limited when you play that way. So once Calafiori came in and he can open up different angles and he's very good at like either going central or overlapping. He has so much to his game and he can also pass the ball into left half space, combine. And those are things that are important. You can't do that with like Timber just because that his right foot, like being right-footed dominant, it doesn't work. So I do think Calafiori and Martinelli are growing together. And it's a good thing because Martinelli needs support on that side. Even Merino against Southampton at the end, a lot of people didn't talk about this pass. And I know people are like, it's a basic pass, but it's a pass that we haven't seen our left center mid do since Xhaka. We got it at the center circle and just pinged it into the space for Martinelli to run onto with his left foot. We haven't had that. And I love Declan Rice down, but him being right-footed on that side hurts us because he kind of runs into Martinelli and then turns back. Yeah, he can't hit that. He can't do it. So I think Calafiori has given us a lot and hopefully Merino will give us more too.
I think you're bang on the money. Do you think, obviously Moreno's not exactly fully fit. I think he looked good for Spain and he's looked good in his little minutes. Does he walk into the team? Like if we assume today, Mikel Moreno's fully fit, fully up to standard, is him or Declan Rice or Partey, does he walk into the team? Because for me, I'm a bit like, I do think Moreno and Rice and Odegaard and Calafiori, that's what we want to do. But I'm not going to sit here and lie. I don't think Partey should be dropped at this moment in time, if I'm brutally honest. And I'm not dropping Declan Rice. So it's good problems to have, man. Surely.
I feel that right now, he's not 100% fit. So it's kind of like the team still kind of picks itself, I think like if we fast forward to Southampton, it'll be Partey, Rice, and Trossard with Kai up front. And that's what we'll see. That being said, I think as Merino gets more fit, I do think that he'll start to get a starting position. I think there's a lot to be said with Mikel trusting Merino in like the PSG game at the end. Arteta's not afraid to get him into the side and use him.
He's got to trust all these players, surely.
Yeah. So, and you think about like the difference between how he's used Sterling and how he's used Merino. I think Sterling has gotten maybe more minimal moments where Merino's been thrust like, or he's just put right in. So I think eventually I do see our best midfield being Merino, Rice, and Odegaard eventually. Just in terms of like balance and getting everything that we need. But right now, there's no reason to change it because Merino can't play 90 minutes. So
What do you make of the injury crisis? Crisis is a strong word, but Tommy Asu's got injuries again. There's talking points about Saka and Martinelli. Obviously, Martin Odegaard's out. Benjamin White had an injury going into this international break. What do you make of the injury crisis? And do you think Benjamin White's in trouble as well with Timber and Calafiori's emergence? Bit of a double-edged question.
I feel like with the injuries, I said it at the beginning of the season, like even in preseason, that we're never going to have a time where all of our players are going to be fit at the same time. I just think, yeah, exactly. Like, and even in the season that we had, the first season that we challenged, our best 11 only played together like 3 times. So I think the squad is important and having solutions for players being missing. You can only replace a player so much if they're important to your team, but we've done as good as we can without Odegaard. And I think we're going to have more of those moments. So yeah, I think we've done well with, I saw somebody I think it was Pedro from the Arsenal Opinion was saying that Arteta's like threatened the players in some capacity to like take care of themselves on international duty. As
you should. Make sure you come back in one piece. I don't want to hear nothing. Arteta, big him up for that if he did that.
Yeah, because it's their responsibility. I think there's a lot of like the club should. I'm like, the club can't do anything, guys. They can't stop players from going. They can't.
They shouldn't.
And they shouldn't. I think the players have to be smarter. And I think, what I thought Saka did with England is he was injured in the first half, in whatever game that they were playing against Greece. And Lee Carsley kept him on. And so he took himself off. That's what I think Saka did. Because I think he knows that he needs to. Because if he didn't say anything, he would have played the whole game. And
he probably would have played in the second game as well recently.
In the second game, exactly. So I think it's up to them, and I think Arteta has to make it very clear that if you want to win the league and you want to win trophies, you guys need to be fit. So if you're going to go on international duty, you need to find a way to come back in one piece. I can't do anything. I can't threaten the coaches. I can't do anything. So I think as long as our players are more responsible on international duty, we'll be fine. But we're never going to have we'll probably have one game where everybody's fit and then somebody will get injured again. Now, in regards to like White, I said at the beginning of the season, I think Timber is very much so a threat to White at right back. I think people were maybe being a little delusional about Timber's level because they love White and I love White, but there's nothing wrong with having 2 players that can play that position at a high level.
Wrong with some depth.
But we've also played White into the ground for 3 years. People have to remember.
He came on against City where Arteta said the man has an injury.
Yeah, since White has been in the team or been at Arsenal, he's played almost every minute of every game. So
with injuries and known to lie about having injuries as well, so he can play for the club.
Exactly. So I think it's nice to see White get some rest. He needs it. Equally, I think Timber adds something different on that side that we need. And that's not to say that
I'll wait to see him tackling Odegaard, man.
Because that's what people think. If you say, oh, well, I like to see Timber at right back, what they hear is, well, White shit.
Yeah, White crap, drop him, can't play anymore.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. But if you asked me straight up who I think is a better player, Timber or White, I'd probably say Timber. Even saying that, I still feel like White, like we used to talk about, oh, well, who's gonna play Chambers or
Cedric and Bellerin and Louise and the Chuckle brothers and
White and Timber now. Like these are first world problems now, so ain't nobody talking about White doing crap. But I do think Timber, but I'm biased because Timber is one of my favorite players on the team. So I'm always going to look at him and be like, yes, like, look what he's doing. He looks great. But I do think he's really good. I mean, what have you made of some of his performances?
I mean, I've been saying it. I said Timber, when we signed Timber, I said, I think he's going to be our player of the season. Obviously, he got injured. Timber's been a revelation. I mean, the man's tigerish. The man can defend. He can go forward. He can do the inverted. He can play on the traditional kind of stuff. We wanted these problems. I'm with you in that he's one of my favorite footballers. I must admit, I'm not a fan of him as a centre half. Not that we've been exposed to that on too many occasions. But we wanted him and Calafiori and Timber, and you throw Benjamin White in there and my guy Tomiyasu. I mean, I don't know, man. Where you at? I got two questions for you before we get out of here, man. Tomiyasu, have you given up? Because I must admit, it's nothing to do with the man's ability, his versatility. It's just his availability. I am now crossing that realm where it's like, oh, Tommy, difficult conversations might have to take place in the summer.
I mean,
especially because we're linked with Hatto again.
Yeah, the injury that he got at the beginning of this season was it for me. I was, for me, I keep the same energy with all the injury-prone players. They're never going to be available when you need them to be. And there's never like if you don't play them as much, then they won't get injured, because they'll get injured.
Some silly rhetoric. I hate that.
Yeah, they'll get injured walking down the street. That's just how they are. So I feel like there was one point where like Tierney got injured in the shower, like he slipped and fell or some shit, and then people were like, but he's not playing as much. It's like, it doesn't matter, you guys.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So for me, Tomiyasu he would be so nice if Tommy was fit, he would solve so many of our issues. I would say we could go into next summer without having to address the defense, but because he's not available enough, and you have other players that can't do what he does, which is cover all the positions, you need to go into the window and get someone, unfortunately. I love Tommy, but at this stage, it's like borderline ridiculous. It's very
borderline.
It's like, why are you never fit? Like, but you go to Japan and you could play, but you can't play for us, and we gave him that new deal, which is fine because it keeps his value. But my goodness, he has just not played any football, has he? And he really hasn't.
I mean, and there's even talk of him playing for, again, Arteta's going to be asked about it probably tomorrow or Friday, but it's a thing where, you've had a disrupted preseason, so you're essentially playing catch up. If you have been injured again playing for Southampton, you're in big problems. I love Tommy. He's versatile. He can help us close out games. He has a case to be our best 1v1 defender, which I think I'm going to revisit next summer. But if you're not available, it's issues. And I think, honestly, if Tomiyasu had more durability, he probably would have got a 4 or 5 year deal, really and truly. It's just to protect his value. I don't think me or Jess or anyone here is sleeping on Tomiyasu. Nobody's questioning his ability or what he brings to the table. It's just you're never there to bring something to the table.
I love Tommy, man. Like when he first came and he played that first game against Norwich, I was like, we're sorted for forever with the right back. It's done. But since then, he's played so little football, guys.
Exactly. Has he even got 100 appearances for the football club? Like, because bearing in mind, Saliba's only been here, 3 years? Part of the first team like that 3 years. I think he's got like 92. And this is what I'm talking about with Tomiyasu, man. It's like, let me actually look. He's played 65 times in the Premier League. He's played 84 times for Arsenal Football Club in all comps, considering when we signed him, and the club was a very different place to when Tomiyasu initially
he was meant to be a starter.
He signed in 2021. It's 3 years.
He's a really good player, just not durable enough. And I don't know I'm like, is it that he, needs to be playing center back, so he's not doing all those running shifts? I don't know what it is, but I
don't know, because if you're going to play for Mikel Arteta's side, it don't matter where you're playing, you're going to have to deal with that intensity. I don't know what it is with Tomiyasu, man. I don't know if it's something to do with him personally, something on the coaching front. I don't know. Last question. Yeah. Somebody told me to ask you, predict a final finish in terms of points and in brackets 2-point range. I don't know. For me personally, I think you need to be targeting 90 points. Anything less than that, give or take, we can forget about winning the league. But where are you at?
I mean, we need at least 90 points. So that's where we should be at. What was it like? So what are they actually asking? Like,
that's actually what they said. They said predict a final finish in terms of points in brackets 2-point range.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be in the 90 points range. We haven't made it yet, and we haven't won the league. So, and I think in order to push City, they need to be in the 90-point range to feel like they're under some sort of threat. I think we've let them off the hook both years. So, yeah, 90 points. No more dropping points at all. We can barely drop any points. Like, that's how crazy it is. This is why I'm really happy that we played Aston Villa when we did, by the way. Because
not just them, City away, Spurs away, Aston Villa. We've got some difficult ones out the way, man. I would have loved for obviously it's not here. I would have loved to have had Liverpool at Anfield out the way as well, naturally. Because you look at our run.
We do get them out of the way, I think, before the end of the year, though.
Which is music to my ears, man. The quicker you play those games, the better. If I'm honest with you, I don't know how you feel, but it's at the Emirates where I'm a bit kind of nervous. Away from home, of course, last season there were games we did well at home, games we were poor away. But generally, it's away from home. I'm a lot confident. It's the games at the Emirates that kind of make me a bit nervous. Even though on the face of it, we did beat Leicester, we did beat Southampton, we should have beat Brighton. It's these games that are filled with drama in a nice way. We're boring away from home, give or take. I know the City game was probably entertaining for the neutrals, but that's it. And it's almost an impossible job because we are going to drop points. It happens. It's football. We're not invincible. But it's that like you said, you almost can't afford to if you want to fight City. If you're even 90 points, ask Liverpool fans, even plus 90 points might not be enough to win a title.
Well, so we don't want to be in a situation that we were in last season where we couldn't drop any points at the back end of last season. Like we couldn't drop any points and we basically did it and still came up short. So I think a better start will help us out. But we have to get into that thing that City get into where it's almost like mechanical game, win. I don't quite think we're there,
We're not our best yet, but we weren't last year, to be fair.
Yeah, but I think we've started this season better than we started last season, which
I think it's a mixed bag personally, Jess.
Really?
I think it's mixed. I feel there's some things I think we did better last season than we did this year. I think there's things we can improve. I think we've conceded the exact amount of goals, if I remember correctly. At this time, we conceded 6. At the moment, we've conceded 6. But I'm not expecting us to be better. Once we get to the 10-game plus mark, now I'm going to start being a bit harsh. Okay, what's the fluidity saying? I know any team's going to concede goals, but for a team that's meant to be one of the best in Europe, I think these things are avoidable. Can we make the games filled with less drama? And it's just about points on the board, man. We just need to get into the December, January period, still having these conversations, man. Just let us know where they can find you and where we're heading to next, man.
Yeah, guys, just YouTube, She Knows Arsenal in the search bar, and then I'll pop up. We're going to talk in like a couple minutes about Mikel Merino because I'm moved. So yeah,
come moved on already. You know what? Let's save that for over there. But people, man. Obviously, we're heading over to her platform. Make sure you're there. I'm sure we'll consider the same topics or anything we've missed. Make sure you join us. Yeah, the Arsenal talk continues as we get back to Premier League football. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to the platforms, head over to Jess's channel, and we'll continue this chat, man. So yeah, people, peace.